Baroness Ludford has given us a foretaste of the consideration we'll have on Amendment 206, which I've added my name to and which was tabled by her noble friend Baroness Hamwee about Europol. And I agree with what she's said today. I also agree with the interventions which have been made by other noble lords, by the noble Lord, Lord Dubbs, on behalf of his noble friend Lord Brown, and about the importance of consultation. I agree, of course, with what noble Baroness Lady Hamwee said, and she has no reason to fear. No one will ever accuse her of being pompous, and she was right to remind us about the importance of the use of words, and she drew our attention to words irregular and illegal. I particularly want to speak, if I may, though, to the amendment which was moved very ably by Lord Cameron of Lochiel on his behalf, and that of his noble friend, I think, Lord Davis of Gower. That's Amendment 7, and it spells out in the amendment what the duties of the commander should be in reducing the number of illegal migrant crossings and increasing the prosecutions of criminal organisations who facilitate illegal migrant crossings. In some ways, my lords, it seems almost otiose to include this on the bill, as clearly that is the main reason why the government brought this bill forward in the first place. But I understand the need sometimes to even use bills as a form of semaphore to send out signals, and I understand why the opposition front bench would perhaps wish to do that. As the Minister knows, I apologised for being unable to speak at second reading because a group of us from the Joint Committee on Human Rights, which I chair, were in Strasbourg to talk, amongst other things, about interpretations of Article 8 of the ECHR, about prosecutions, about the numbers of illegal crossings referred to in this amendment, about the criminal gangs manipulating and profiteering on the backs of often desperate people. During that visit, we met with, amongst others, Tim Ike KC, who has been the British judge in the European Court for the past 9 years. And as noble lords will know, the British government have put forward the names of 3 others who will take his place. And I'm glad to say that Tim Ike KC has told me that he is willing to come to your lordship's house when he returns in September to share with us many of the experiences that he has had over these last 9 years. I was very struck, my lords, that the European Court and the Council of Europe are not our enemies. And often some of your lordships were able to participate in the debate that I moved on behalf of the crossbenches a few weeks ago on the European Convention of Human Rights, its origins, which we have been celebrating. It's the 75th anniversary, its importance in this day and age. And the two things, the Council of Europe and the European Convention, are inextricably linked. And that is something that I wanted members of our committee to go and evaluate, to understand, because if one were to leave the Convention, it would mean also leaving the Council of Europe and disentangling ourselves from many of the things that I personally believe help us to ensure that the number of illegal crossings will be reduced and to ensure that the number of prosecutions will increase, because we have to do these things across borders. We have to do it with our neighbours, and if we don't, we certainly will not stem staggering numbers of people who are leaving their own homelands in order to make these dangerous crossings. The Council of Europe and the Court shared our concerns during all of the discussions that we had. My lords, these are not our enemies. We discussed the exploitation and the displacement of what is a staggering 122 million people, a number that nearly doubled in the last decade. These are the people who have been displaced. The number of refugees and persons in need of international protection reached over 42 million, while the number of internally displaced people rose to around 74 million. More than 2/3 of refugees originated from just 6 countries: Syria, Afghanistan, Ukraine, South Sudan, Sudan and Venezuela. A rough but telling extrapolation from these figures suggests that around 1 in every 67 people on Earth has been forcibly displaced. These people are the shadow which hangs over our debate on this amendment and others today. Last Friday, on June the 20th, the Joint Committee published its report on the bill. It runs to over 80 pages, and I would commend it to your lordship's house. It's available in the printed paper office. At paragraph 13, we remarked, I quote, that it was not within the scope of this inquiry to look at wider issues such as root causes of the refugee crisis or proposals for offering safe and legal routes to those in need of protection. Whilst this bill focuses exclusively on tackling organised immigration crime, we encourage the government to seek to address the underlying root causes which are fueling the global refugee crisis. My Lords, we cannot dodge that challenge. I strongly agree with the UNHCR, which in its recent analysis of global trends was emphatic that for meaningful progress to be made, I quote, we must address the root causes. It's a point I've repeatedly, perhaps some would say tediously, made in your Lordship's House. Simply blaming international humanitarian law will not be part of the solution. To be clear, the Joint Committee welcomes the overall aims of the bill to deter organised crime and prevent the loss of life at sea. So, of course, we would agree, therefore, with the terms of this amendment as it is drafted. It's right that the government does all it can to ensure a legislative framework is in place to help eradicate this terrible and dangerous criminality. But we won't do that by diminishing our obligations to uphold international conventions and commitments. If offences are applied too broadly, we warn that refugees, victims of people smuggling and modern slavery are referred to the noble Lord Hampson, who does such an admirable job in his role at the Home Office, and I join with others in paying tribute to him. I've been personally deeply impressed by the work that he does, and it's good to have got to know him over the distance. He knows as well as I do that victims of modern slavery are being put at risk of being criminalised, and rather than the smugglers, we have got to do both. It's not a question of one or the other. We have to help the victims as well as tackling the smugglers. This bill needs to target those who are profiting from organised immigration crime. The people they're exploiting need to be protected, but at present there is a risk that the most vulnerable are caught by some of the new offences. So yes, we are united in wishing to reduce the number of illegal crossings, but we would be wary of enacting laws which could have unforeseeable consequences. I'll return to some of these points, my Lords, in later groups of amendments, and I'll try not to be repetitive. We've got to make progress on this bill, but I do welcome the debate we've had so far on this group of amendments and the spirit in which it's been conducted as well. That's admirable and far better, I might add, than some of the exchanges that we had in the last Parliament, both in the Joint Committee on Human Rights, I must say, but also on the floor of the House. So I hope as we proceed we will keep those two objectives in our sights. One is to tackle the illegality of those who are putting these lives at risk on a daily basis, but also, my Lords, the importance of protecting those who are so vulnerable.
My Lords.